Herman Cain here on the Rusty Humphrey Show. Now, there's something in your resume that I had not known, and that is former chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that say the Federal Reserve is unconstitutional. It's the one causing most of the problems here. If you were the chairman of Kansas City, tell me a little about the Federal Reserve and why that should or should not be something we should worry about.
First of all, it's not unconstitutional. What happened was in 1913, the Congress of the United States designated the authority to the Federal Reserve to be created. So how can that be unconstitutional? Congress has to pass the laws. Congress sets up the authority to do things. That's what they did. So it is not unconstitutional, number one. Number two, the Federal Reserve has, at certain times in its history, did what it was supposed to do better than others. I don't agree with many of the policies of the Federal Reserve that we have today. When I was on the board of the Federal Reserve and Alan Greenspan was the chairman of the Federal Reserve, we didn't dream of doing some of the things that they are doing today.
Like what?
Why.
Like what? What was different then and now?
Then we didn't have a $14 trillion national debt that we were trying to pay off with the Federal Reserve printing money to buy our own debt. That's like incest. We never even dreamed of that because the debt wasn't as big as it was. So for the people who say you just get rid of the Federal Reserve, Rusty, with all due respect, you can't do that. And here's why. What would you replace it with? I've had some people tell me...
Gold and silver, they'll say.
Yeah. I agree with getting back to the gold standard. But we can't get back to the gold standard until we get rid of this national debt. And I had one lady tell me, she said, make Congress do its job. Well, Congress messed up Social Security. Congress messed up Medicare and Medicaid. You want to give it back to the same crooks who stole money from us out of Social Security? No, I would rather fix the Federal Reserve and get it to do the mission that it was charged with rather than putting it back in the hands of a committee of 535.
Well, Herman Cain here on the Rusty Humphrey Show. You've got guys like Ron Paul who just think that the Federal Reserve is just evil, from the devil or something.
But he doesn't say what you replace it with.
Yeah.
This is what the people who want to get rid of the Federal Reserve don't talk about. Look, Rusty, imagine having airplanes flying, and I fly a lot, flying around with no air traffic control system. What do you think would happen? They'd be running into one another. What I'm saying is I don't agree with some of the things that the Federal Reserve has done of late, but the answer isn't simply just get rid of it. No, we need to basically revise them carrying out the mission that they were originally intended to do. They did what they were supposed to do for a long time. Here's the other thing. The reason that the Congress has been able to run up the deficits the way they have, that's the problem, is because we got off the gold standard. If we were on the gold standard, the Federal Reserve would not be able to do some of the things that it is doing today in order to try and help prop up our currency.
I mean, because we got nowhere near that kind of gold.
No. This is why we got to work the debt back down first. We get the national debt back down, and I believe that we can do that with some serious cutting of whole programs. But the other thing we've got to do is unleash the full economic potential of this economy. That's the other reason that I'm considering running for president. We can do some things in the short term to stimulate this economy with direct stimulus versus the indirect spending stimulus, which has not worked. We need to bring down the top corporate tax rate. We are the only country on the planet that has not done this in the last 15 years. Make the tax rates permanent. When you extend the tax rates for 2 years, you extend uncertainty for 2 years. We need to suspend, we need to take capital gains tax to zero. Why punish people taking the risk that are investing in small businesses? We need to suspend the tax on repatriated profits that are offshore in other countries, but they won't come home because they're going to be double and triple taxed. And fifthly, provide a full payroll tax holiday to employees and employers, which would be direct stimulus in the pockets of the people who make the money. This is how we get this going. And then phase 2 of my economic stimulus plan, replace the tax code with the fair tax, which is a national consumption tax.
Herman Cain here on the Rusty Humphrey Show. A couple things I want to go over there. First of all, you want to do all this cutting, and I agree with you. We can't even get Congress to cut NPR. How do you think we're going to make these huge cuts?
That's because the only one, the person in Washington that should be leading the cut parade should be the president. Cutting programs and cutting government is not in this president's DNA. It is in my DNA. This is how I have been able to save companies and save business enterprises for 40 years. You've got the leadership for the cutting has to come from the White House, and right now it is not. When the president says he's put $6 billion worth of cuts on the table, the Republicans say that they put $60 billion on the table, and the president says he's met them halfway. What kind of arithmetic is that? That's a long way from, what they ought to really be doing, because the way they're going about it, first of all, they are trimming around the edges. What it is going to take is cutting whole programs, and that's what the president has to do with each individual agency, which is exactly how I would go about doing it.
The president has to do that one word. What is it? Oh, yeah, lead, and we don't have that anymore.
How about lead and veto, okay? Those are the two most powerful things that he has at his disposal, and right now we are missing the lead part, and we're also missing the veto part when it comes